very difficult, and it's just starting. Anyone who thinks that the election has now brought about a victory and now it's just a cleanup, mop-up time, that's a pretty bad description and perception of what is going on. We're just starting. We're just starting the battle. We won an election. Now we've got to win the war. And, a lot of people like the baseball analogy. It's useful. It's like we just had a really solid second inning. Now let's continue.
The latest issue of the Hat Trick Letter is out. Can you tell us about it and how people can subscribe?
Yeah, there's a good solid chapter on the dollar and issues regarding the dollar and interest rate cuts and a number of different things related to that. There's a big, long, super chapter on silver. And I know silver has had a pullback, but it's a bit of a psychotic pullback because nothing has changed with respect to silver. There's still tremendous shortages of silver. There's still tremendous demand of silver. And we're seeing a real test of the old ceiling of 30 and 31. I think we're going to prevail, and I'm not real worried about it at all. I'll make some more comments in that direction. But, obviously I had a good solid chapter about the election, and it was an optimistic chapter, and it turned out to be pretty much on the mark. I didn't expect that there would be a prevailing wind for the fascist Dems, and there was not. There's a lot to be said about the various aspects of the election, and I will address that. But, the dollar, the BRICS issues, and the election, these are the matters for the October Hat Trick Letter, the newsletter. And I'm very excited about what's going on, but I am not delusional. I do not think for a minute, oh gosh, we've got it all won. The cabal is going to be sent packing. That's not the way it's going to be at all. Anyway, the newsletter is out for October, and here we are. I got to say, this is really a rather funny comment to make, but it's true. It's my reality. Every 4 years, actually with the midterm election somewhat too, but every 4 years, I'm glued to the set. I'm glued to the television. I'm glued all evening to, this time it was CNN. 4 years ago, it was Fox News. I'm glued to the mainstream news. I want their interpretation. I want their view. I want their perspective. I want their reporting. I want their commentators. I want their panel. And I got to say, CNN did a rather respectable job. They were rather objective. They were rather fair. They were rather professional. And they did have an Obama former campaign manager clown who talked about the pain for the Democrats and the pain for mercenaries in Ukraine. But he got shot down by a former Trump campaign manager who was sitting right next to him. And the former Obama campaign manager looked surprised and looked like, oh my gosh, I just got elbowed to the face. Yeah, he did. It was interesting to watch the swing states, and I watched it on CNN. I watched it till 1 a.m. my time, and it was Central Time. 1 a.m. Central Time, 2 a.m. Eastern Time. When Pennsylvania turned and went red and was called a Trump victory, I went to sleep. Arizona and Michigan did their usual trick, which was to keep the vote continuing and to announce that they had machine difficulties. Well, that's how they keep the vote count continuing. And this is really interesting. I have a boots on the ground client in Michigan, and he said, Jim, I got a friend who knows someone who was in the monitoring station, and at midnight, California plates a big SUV, and it dumped several big bags. My guess is photocopy fraudulent ballots, and the senatorial candidate from Michigan, Slotkin, who was a little bit behind, she ended up coasting to a victory, and as soon as she was well ahead, they shut down the vote count. Okay, this is how Michigan had their Senate race a victory for the Dems, the fascist Dems, and Arizona did the same thing. They just brought in tons of fake ballots, and their senatorial candidate for the Dems won. Poor Carrie Lake. She had the governor race stolen from her in 22, and now she had the Senate race stolen from her in 24. She might want to consider a different state, but maybe she could lead a movement to reform the Arizona government and rip loose the Sinaloa Mexican cartel influence for their governor, for their top officials, and for their court system, the judges. Okay, there's a lot going on, but the big story, absolutely huge story, is the election victory for Trump. And I got a joke, and I'll be repeating my various points down the road here, but the demographic group that disappointed Comrade Kamala Harris the most was photocopy machines. They really let her down.
The Dow continues to hit new all-time highs. Could we see 50,000 points on the Dow in 2025?
Oh, it could be, but I think there's going to be a little bit of a hangover in the next couple of months as difficulties ensue. I regard the dollar rally to be, it's celebratory. I understand that. The dollar rally, I get that. And when I had a few worried clients contact me and say, Jim, I don't get it. Gold and silver are down. I said, yeah, the dollar's up. There's a little bit of euphoria going on right now, but it may not last real long. And I said, look, let's get to some basic questions. Is the U.S. government debt crisis over? Have they resolved the U.S. government deficit? Are foreigners no longer dumping treasury bonds? Will we have difficulties in finding bond investors for financing the government debt, which is converted to bonds, securitized? Have we resolved the $33 trillion in debt? Have we fixed the deficit that's growing every 90 days, another trillion? Okay, that's part of the Monday morning hangover that we've not quite gotten to yet. So I think Trump might actually, I'm not sure about the Fed rate cuts. We are on track to continuing rate cuts. We had another rate cut last week. They're trying to get a bond rally in the face of a debt default. It's really unprecedented historical event. Unprecedented. I don't know about 50,000 Dow. I'm more concerned about 3,000 gold than 50,000 Dow. When they rally the dollar, Jim, what they're really doing is saying in the next 6 to 12 months, the United States is going to reindustrialize and solve its debt problem. And I say, not going to happen there and not going to happen here. Not going to happen. Just not going to happen. This is going to be a long road, and let's enjoy the celebration. But let's get real, okay? Next Monday morning, let's get real.
The NASDAQ's into new all-time high territory. Do we see 25,000 points on the NASDAQ in 2025? Maybe.
Same commentary. Maybe. A lot depends on continuing the rate cuts in the face of a debt default. We're going to be managing a debt default. Trump has said several months ago, we're going to manage a debt default. It's going to be one of the first orders of business. He doesn't mention that anymore, I think, because it's going to be worked behind the scenes. So maybe I'm not focused on the Dow and the NASDAQ. They are important. I'm focused on the bond market and on the price of gold, silver.
The U.S. dollar's been on the rise since the beginning of October. Are we likely to see a strong dollar under the Trump presidency?
Well, we might. But again, are we going to reindustrialize the United States economy in the next 6 to 12 months? How about the next 2 years? Are we going to solve the debt crisis? I don't think so. Will we have to raise interest rates to protect the dollar? Trump actually wants a weaker dollar. He has said many times, I want a weaker dollar for a trade advantage. So what we're seeing is going opposite to what Trump wants. And if he gets what he wants, we're going to get a reduction. We're going to get a decline in our stock market. So the dollar is something that Trump wants to weaken in order to help our export trade. This celebration, Jim, is not rational. It's not based on anything that you can sink your teeth in, like U.S. is going to recover its economy. We're stuck in an inflationary depression. I mean, that is the reality. I did a Chapwood Index glimpse in the most recent report for October, and it shows inflation between 9 and 10%. We're calling it 2.5%. We lie by 7%. So if we've got a dead even flat economy, we've actually got a 7% depression. Okay, we're not even remotely in the starting blocks for an economic recovery and reindustrialization. The move to impose tariffs is a prelude. It's like a bunch of horns. We want to reindustrialize. We want industry to come back to the United States. But in the meantime, we're going to impose tariffs. Okay, this is not economic recovery and reconstruction. So I don't think the dollar is going to continue its way up, and I don't think gold is going to remain flat. I think it's headed to 3,000 and silver's headed to 40.
The Fed dropped its central rate by 0.25% last week. Alongside this, are rates being lowered in the mortgage market?
Yeah, a little bit, and I don't think it's going to matter much. What good is a lower mortgage rate when you don't have sustainable income to qualify for a mortgage? It's just not going to work. We've got a moribund, kind of dead asleep property market, both commercial and residential. Maybe we'll get a little blip up in the residential housing market, but the commercial market, CRE, commercial real estate, CRE is, it's dead in the water. A quarter point doesn't mean jack shit to me. The mortgage market is going to be in trouble and remain in trouble because banks are going to be unwilling to lend, and when they do, they're going to be unwilling to approve with the lousy income that is on the applications. The banks aren't lending.
Are lower crude oil prices likely under the Trump presidency?
Yeah, but he's got to fight the Rockefellers. He will probably do things to make it more likely and more, amenable to make the path straight and smooth toward lower prices. But lower prices means the Rockefellers make less money. And, I'm going to get to this pretty darn soon in this interview. But the Rockefellers are one of three groups that are in direct opposition to Donald Trump. They're not going to cooperate with him. So if he has measures or does bully pulpit maneuvers to lower the oil price, it's going to have to come with cooperation from the Rockefellers, but also from Russia and Saudi Arabia, UAE. It's going to be really interesting, but I don't expect crude oil prices to come down a whole lot. I expect gasoline prices to come down because I think he's going to make a national initiative to increase the supply. And drill, baby, drill, he's already talked about it. I think he's probably going to open up some of the Alaskan ridge, the North Slope. But, again, this is really not rational. We need 2 years to get the economy back on track. We've done a punishing act. We've done brutal sledgehammering of the economy for 3 years with the fascists in charge in the Biden show. This is not going to be turned around quickly. The oil price is just one of many things.
Does it look like gold topped in October?
Well, yeah, it's taken a breather now. It's consolidating in a big way. We had a considerable move from 2,300, 2,400 all the way up to 2,700. Well, fine. Now it's back down a little, and it's not tragic by any means. And I'm still excited about all the fundamentals behind gold. People get worried over the short term. I had a client from Arizona contact me yesterday, and he's a retired gentleman. He's a good guy. And he said to me, Jim, I'm really worried. I need to sell a couple gold coins every month, blah, 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 and all that. And I said, don't worry. Don't worry. The government debt has not been resolved. The government deficit has not been resolved. We've not reduced the government size. We've not stopped the wars. We're likely to transfer the war from Ukraine to Israel and Iran. We're going to have trouble, finding bond investors to finance our debt. There's still going to be a lot of BRICS nations that are selling the Treasury bond. Our economy is not going to recover quickly. We haven't reindustrialized. So there's nothing really positive in the 3 to 6 months time frame. We're going to have a tremendous battle coming up, and we'll get to that shortly. Oh, and silver, excuse me.
Yeah, did silver top in October?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I know it's kind of a double question. Well, yeah, it's consolidating. It's not breaking down. It's going back to the old top, the old resistance. The saying is your old ceiling becomes your new floor, and we've not broken it, but it's certainly being tested right now. India and China have not reduced their demand. Okay, this is not rational what's going on. There's still tremendous shortages in silver, and even with a higher price, we got lower production globally in the mining sector. What we're referring to is inelastic supply. The price is up and the supply is down, not up. The demand from India and China is still up, strong. Solar industries have not caved in and shut down. There's nothing rational about what's going on with the dollar, gold, and silver. Nothing.
Bitcoin is at all-time highs, backed by nothing. What do you see ahead for Bitcoin?
Well, Bitcoin has more backing than the dollar. The dollar is up. Bitcoin is up even more. It hit 80,000, I believe, today. I don't like the comment that it's backed by nothing. It's backed by mining and accounting verification. Is there any accounting verification of the U.S. dollar? Is there any accounting verification for narco U.S. dollar savings accounts? Is there any account verification of dollars for money laundering, for narcos and child trafficking? Okay, Bitcoin has account verification, and the dollar doesn't. Bitcoin is an underground method of making payments that will not go away. Don't ever forget, in December of 2022, when Bitcoin went down to something like 48 or 50,000, J.P. Morgan said it was going to zero. Now, I don't swear much, but how fucking stupid is that? There's a lot of bullshit surrounding the Bitcoin and crypto industry. Bitcoin is up because Donald Trump has mentioned that he wants to have Bitcoin as a component to the dollar reserves. Now, that's a wonderful concept. Do we have any dollar reserves? No, we have 33 trillion in debt. Again, there's nothing rational going on with the dollar, gold, and silver, and you can throw in Bitcoin at the same time. We don't have any reserves, but when we reindustrialize in the next 3 years, we will. But we have to pay off or default on the debt. In the meantime, that's part of the hangover reality curve. What do I see ahead for Bitcoin? Nothing but strong, nothing but bullshit from the major banks. They better get on board and include it with dollar accounts and CDs and linkage to coin exchanges, or they're going to go irrelevant and late and risk going extinct. That's what I see ahead for Bitcoin. There's plenty backing up Bitcoin.
The aftermath of the landslide victory for President Trump, what are you seeing and hearing?
Oh, I'm seeing a lot of really good planning, and it looks like for the last year or two, the Team Trump, I call it Team Trump. It's not Trump. He's a figurehead. He's a speaker. He's a campaign manager. He's a rallier, and that's all well and good. But anyone who thinks that he made up the 10-point plan for education, anyone who thinks he made up the 10-point plan for security, anyone who thinks he made up the 10-point plan for anything is nuts. He's a contributor. There's a team behind him. I am very impressed with a lot of what I see regarding planning, regarding like the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. I'm impressed by that. But, for all the really solid planning, you need to put it on the road, and it has to run. And it has to get around the roadblocks. Let me mention a few. And I try to keep this simple, but it's not simple. I'll keep it simple in three different categories. They're not going to want to cut back on their budget of $1.3 trillion for Medicare and Medicaid. They're not going to want the American Medical Association to be attacked and subjected to Nuremberg trials for genocide, for 5 million Americans killed, 20 million, 22 million Americans seriously injured, no longer can work, incapacitated. The second group is the military contractors. They like their forever war. They like the $840 billion in annual budget. So they're not going to be applauding and supporting any movement by the DOGE efficiency group to cut back on the military budget. Trump has always said, I had the administration of peace. I was a peace president. Well, from all indications, he's trying to move the war from Ukraine to Israel. Let's see if he can stop the war in Israel and stop the attacking of Iran so that Iran stops their attempts to kill Trump. And in addition to the military contractors who like their forever war and create instability everywhere in the corner of our globe, you have NATO. And NATO is almost self-funding, not quite, almost self-funding with money laundering from trafficking enterprises and Swiss bank accounts that manage that money, and Ukraine operations underground. The military complex with NATO, I believe, is going to be at war with the white alliance element of the U.S. military. Let me make that clearer. I believe the bad element of the U.S. military with the contractors are going to want to continue with the huge budgets, continue with the wars, continue with more destabilization, and they will be at civil war internally with the Pentagon. The third group, it's largely called big tech, but it's a combination of mainstream news, social networks, search engines, and for that matter, fact checkers. And Donald Trump has already said he is going to attack and fire three-letter agencies like FBI, Department of Justice, Homeland Security. Anybody who influenced any department that was loaded with people that influenced censorship with big tech, they're going to get fired. So who runs mainstream news and social networks and fact checkers and search engines? If Donald Trump is smart, he's going to develop an avatar to be seen in public while he remains behind the scenes in control. And he's got a lot of work to do to reform the U.S. government. You know, there's a lot of ballyhoo and backslapping and celebration. Oh gosh, we're going to cut $2 trillion off the U.S. government budget. Let's see if he can cut even $200 billion off in the first year. Let's see. Watch the resistance with the Rockefellers, Medicare, Medicaid. Watch the resistance with the military, $840 billion a year. Watch the resistance with Langley and big tech. Are they going to roll over and suddenly reveal all kinds of scummy behavior with Hollywood and political types torturing kids? We're going to have a potential witch hunt of very evil people for treason, bribery, Epstein Island activity, Diddy activity. I heard that a number of people in Hollywood are on the run. They have left the country. This is going to be exciting. Okay, what am I seeing? I'm seeing an alignment of the fascist Dems, like in California, where the governor is prepared to resist any reform from the federal side, where the attorney general, a little jerk in California, has said, I'll be there. If they try to take away our freedoms, I'll be there. Okay, right. Well, what does communism do but take away your freedom? So what we're seeing is an election that backfired on the fascist Dems, while they tried to have millions of Americans sleepwalk into communism without the label. They called it democracy. Well, so did North Korea.
President Trump is talking about instituting tariffs and eliminating federal income tax. Is this a brilliant idea?
Well, yeah, it is. Well, yes and no. The tariffs it's a really bad idea. Unless you follow up the tariffs with rapid reindustrialization, it's stupid suicide. Stupid suicide. What are we going to do? We're going to add another $1,000 to every Toyota and Honda? What are we going to do? We're going to just block off all Chinese trade? Well, we'll get ready for shortages and get ready for higher prices. So tariffs mean higher prices and more price inflation. Eliminating the federal income tax, that's a wonderful idea. They need to come up with something to back it up, like what Donald Trump has talked about, and he doesn't mention it much lately, but he talked about a national VAT tax, like a national sales tax. Well, I think that's a good idea. I think we're going to see a lot of three-letter agency go away. The Chevron deference case was the fourth case to demonstrate state power. We might have had a fifth case to demonstrate state power when Virginia was supported by the Supreme Court in their decision to allow Virginia to eliminate non-citizens from the voting rolls, and the bleeding heart fascist Dems claimed that was, directed against the migrants. Well, yeah, but the Dems still won Virginia because they imported so many thousands into Virginia in the last several years. Many of them already had voter status, already had citizenship, fast-track citizenship. So Virginia, in my opinion, was the only victory for the migrants. And remember, the demographic group that let down Kamala Harris the most was photocopy machines. I don't like tariffs, okay? And I don't like income tax. The wealthy don't pay much income tax. They got good accountants.
What do you think President Trump's landslide victory will mean for Canada, Mexico, and the USMCA trade agreement?
I don't know. All three, I don't know. This is going to be a wait and see. I don't know. I'm sorry. Let me just a little bit more. I hate to just say I don't know and walk away. Sorry, Jim. We have to redefine our relationship with Mexico. One early indicator of a positive side was that Trump contacted Sheinbaum, the woman, the Marxist new president in Mexico. They don't use the word Marxist. Just take a look at the policies, and they're all Marxist. And Mexico responded by bringing out a portion of the Mexican military to turn back the migrant wave, the migrant flood at Texas. So we're getting some cooperation from Mexico. And I believe what I heard was Trump said to them, we want your support to stop the migrant caravan. And if you don't, we're going to impose tariffs on Mexican products like vehicles, cars, and trucks. So there's a lot of battling going on. With Canada, golly, I don't know. Are you guys ever going to get rid of Trudeau? Trudeau is just a gigantic cancer. There was another falsified, fraudulent vote in Vancouver. I don't have all the details, but this USMCA